Welcome to the Hole in the Head Moto podcast, where motorcycle musings lead to medium-sized adventures. Follow along on Instagram at Hole in the Head Moto. In this episode, shop nesting, boomer prices, and revisiting old projects.
Hey, Andy, did you, when you were a kid, did you ever build a fort?
Yes. Yes.
Like just in the house or outside or in a tree?
So the long answer is when I was a kid, I was in a daycare, right? And this was back when, mom went to work, dropped you off in the morning, or you went there after school and you just had the run of the house.
Right.
So I stayed in this daycare until the 5th grade. So I was one of the eldest kids in the thing. And we would always jump the back fence, go out into this back, maybe half acre of woods and field, and there's just air conditioner shells and plywood and fences, just shit out junk. And we would build lean-to forts and have turret guns and stuff. Yeah. So yes, that's a fun part of my life.
Okay. So did you ever have a fort that you had that was just sort of a hideout fort? Like I used to build forts for having dirt clod wars, and then we built forts for,
a tactical
activity.
fort.
But I used to have just like a hideout, like where you kept some snacks in there and you just would kind of.
I understand. Yes, I understand. The same thing where you would just kind of stow some things out there, just in case. Yeah. That's your bug out bag before you knew what it was.
Okay. All right. The reason I ask is that I haven't had a fort since I was 9, but I feel like building my garage has become my fort.
I can see that.
And what's interesting is that I've had other garages, to work on my junk, but I never took hardly any time to set them up. And so they were just all, whatever was there I used, and whatever it didn't have I suffered through. And this is the first time since I'm 9 years old, that I'm trying to set this thing up.
A purpose-built fort.
It's just such a nostalgic feeling to go out to my fort. Because you remember how it is, like I'm hiding away, or I'm on my own, or I'm doing what I want, or it's like your space. It's like, this is the space where I'm the king.
Well, it's you get to make all the decisions about everything. And it's not, I envy that. That's nice.
So do you feel that way about your garage
I do,
now?
In a way, because, well, yes and no, because it's a rental. And so there's only so much you can do. But when I took pictures of it as I filled it up, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, oh, this is where the sandblast cabinet goes. Hey, there's not sandblasting cabinet. Here's sandblasting cabinet. And so, and then of course it's just full of shit now and bikes, but it's just, there's a certain excitement of not ownership, but it's just like, this is, you start to overthink how you're going to use it and what's next, and this is where I keep this, and that's that, and
it's just like, if I was a girl, it'd be like playing house, but I'm playing house I'm playing tent or whatever. I'm playing in my garage, and it's this kind of strange feeling. And so yesterday was the first time that I hooked up my little boom box and played some music.
I imagine that's nice.
And you know how that moment where you're just kind of in your garage and the music's right.
Yeah, you had that.
Yeah, I had that moment. I haven't had that in years. In fact, the last time I think I had a nice time like that in the shop was, I think, when we were back at Tech Shop, and you brought your phone and had your playlist on it, and I liked your playlist. I liked what you were playing, and we had some music, and it was just really such a nice atmosphere to sit down
ambient
and work and have a little bit of music. Well, anyway, the point was sound in the shop, and so I'm taking time. I have this big Milwaukee job site boombox, that I just put my phone to. Actually, it sounds great out there. But I have rat-holed some outdoor speakers, and I'm going to put like in a regular system. I want it to be like surprisingly decent system. And what's funny is that I don't care about a stereo at home. I don't care about a stereo in the car. Not at all important to me. But all of a sudden, it's become important to me. Stereo. Who says that? Who's used that word?
In the corners. Just nice little
real crisp. I want it to be. Yeah,
I'm envious of that.
Anyway, that's funny. Hey, Did you get the picture I sent you today?
I did. And funny, I have a tangent for that as well, but it looks amazing.
Okay. So let me just say, I've been building this homemade circus tent, right? That it looks like a homeless guy took over a Cirque du Soleil tent from 20 years ago. That's kind of what my garage looks like. So what I built is my own fabric building out of old billboards and steel trusses and telephone poles. So today I put this, right? So that's the story. And I put the sidewalls up today, which I didn't even look. So one side of the shop, I have a Carl's Jr. Billboard, and the other side is Wendy's.
Oh, boy. Okay. That's awesome. Well, you don't want that inside.
So what do you
I think
of
it's
that?
amazing.
Yeah.
Are you getting these locally, or are you ordering them?
No, there's a guy in Tucson that just sells them for $50, and you go up and you just get whatever's on the pile. And so I go buy them every now and then.
I just ordered some billboard tarpaulin to make some things out of. I mean, it's graphic. Oh, yeah. It's got patterns already built into it. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's really neat stuff. I mean, it's really durable and it glues well, and you can sew it, and so I love it. I'm going to do a ton of things with it, but it's just sort of funny. I ended up with those two things on the side of the shop, and then which I thought it looks a little bit not like I don't like it. All right, because I actually got one of them upside down inadvertently. Then I'm not going to rehang it. But what kind of turned me sour on it is that I went out my driveway and went past my neighbor's house and turned around and came back to see what he sees every day when he comes down, and it just looks a little bit like
garish. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to paint them out and paint them to match the other buildings on the property or whatever. But it was just sort of funny today that I saw what my neighbor saw for the first time. I thought, I can't do that.
Well, that's nice of you.
How would you feel if your neighbor? Well, how would you feel if all of a sudden you got up tomorrow and your neighborhood hung a Wendy's 4 for $4 or whatever the current special is
in this lush prairie desert scape or something? And then
and it's a 10 by 40 foot billboard.
Well, that's very kind of you. It's very kind of you. Yeah. It's all
right. So
I'm very interested in its durability. The tarp.
Okay, that is an issue, and so it has to do with the thickness of it and then how tight you stretch it. I've learned this, so that if you stretch it in the sun and when it's 100 degrees out there, you stretch it and you get it too tight. Then when it's cold, you don't like it. So you kind of have to split the difference. My goal is just to get all the wrinkles out. I don't care how tight it is. I just get the wrinkles out. But then one of the things I learned is that just by covering, I'll put a covering on it. Like I just use this elastomeric roof coating. It's like a thick latex paint or even just latex paint. And it gives it a UV layer. So that here where I live in Arizona, it's the sun damage that would be the big problem. And so evidently these things, we'll see how long it lasts. But I've used 6 of them so far to cut and make everything. Shop 1,600 square feet. And I pretty much got it all covered.
You're doing this, so if not entirely, but largely by yourself. Okay.
Yeah, I do everything by myself. I kind of like it that way.
Well, it's funny. Like this is a project that you would think, just looking at it at its scale, this does reflect your skill and prowess and whatever. But that's a project where you think, man, a few people did that. But I imagine that there is a certain gratification, not only in completing it and doing it yourself, but this is a massive thing. How can I figure out how to do this? Like you told me how you got the trestles up and all.
Listen, yeah. You know what's funny is that I spend about 2 hours a day when I'm supposed to be doing something else, just thinking of procedurally how I'm going to do the next step.
I understand.
And so really by the time I put something up, it's like I've thought it through for a week and a half about how this is going to go. And I'm not a very prepared guy, and I don't lay everything out. I'm not anal. I'm not a perfectionist at all. But I have come up with some pretty stinking good methods for doing stuff with just two arms. It's amazing the kind of things you can do. 2 arms and a pickup. I use my pickup for everything. I stand on it. I put ladders on it. I pull on it. It's been the chief tool is my Ford F-250. But I'm getting ready to move in the garage, so that's why I kind of brought up the garage stuff, because I'm just now having feelings about being there for the first time, because it's kind of got some definition, and I don't want to come back in the house.
You just stay out there all night. I get that.
Just stay out there. I know. I want to put a loft in there and sleep out there. Not because I don't want to be at home, but I love the people at my home. It's just that
I think there's something to that you're just experiencing on a grander scale, because, and I know that in a lot of ways you and I are kindred in our, sort of whatever, but I know that there's a streak in maybe men or people or whatever, but like, even when I built the shelves in the garage in our townhouse, all I wanted to do is stay in the garage and just sit on a motorcycle and be like, this is the garage. You know what I mean? I'm not doing anything. I don't have any tools out. I just want to hang out in here. It's cool.
Well, it's like, that's the stuff you want to be around, and then like, I knew a guy that had an airplane hangar. We used to go out to his hangar, and I thought, how great is this? Because in the middle of the hangar, he had a little sectional leather sofa and lamps, and so it was like a non-defined living room, but there was a little, all the end tables were refrigerators and had little stuff in it, so it's kind of high end, but what was cool is that you're sitting in what feels like a living room, but his airplanes and his motorcycles and his trucks and everything is in there, and you think, man, this is so much better than furniture. I mean, just like, I think the next stage is to, I already have Ducatis on the porch, but yet I really would like to decide which ones come in the house.
Yeah. Oh, you mean into your house or the literal house?
Yeah, because I love motorcycles in the house. I love it. I've always
there is something about that, because they don't belong, and so it's okay. Like if there's at least one that doesn't get a lot of riding or attention or whatever, bring it in. Like these ones that we've discussed in Eastern Washington, I think one of them would be in the living room, like, or even my little office, just put it on the desk in front of me, and like, there's plenty of room on this desk. That's fine.
In fact, could you imagine getting a corporate gig and going to work and going, is this my office? Is this my cube? This is where I sit? And then go get your MV Agusta and wheel it in there and put it up on the stand?
Like, can I get a hand?
I mean, but what's funny is that I'm sure it would cause, a lot of consternation among, your boss or whatever, but if you did it, everybody would wish they could do it too, or they wish they did done it. They'd go, that's the coolest thing ever.
Badass.
Andy's, look at that. You don't bring a motorcycle into the office? Yeah, you do.
Breaker. I want to take him to lunch. You go.
Okay. Hey, you mentioned the honey hole. That's what my second conversation today was, or that I wanted to have with you.
I figured.
Was I wanted to follow up with the honey hole, but then I also have a theoretical question. Maybe we should do that
theoretical.
One first.
Shoot.
Okay. Today, not thinking about your honey hole, I just was trolling eBay, which I hardly ever troll eBay. It's usually because I'm out of things to look at. But I love it. I love doing it. Except for, do you know how to get to, when you go to eBay, all I want to look is other cycle. You know what I mean? Not brand. You go brand names.
Yeah.
And you can we'll talk or whatever. I want to get to other, because that's the stuff that I like. And I see it, but I don't know how to get back to it.
eBay's a weird one, because you have to go to Motors, but Motors also includes parts, which also includes cheap Chinese knockoffs of shit that has nothing to do with anything.
Right. But anyway, I never know how to get there. I finally got there, or today I couldn't figure it out. And so what I did today is I just searched motorcycles from 1910 to 1975. All right.
That's how you do it. That's how you get around.
I just did it to kind of like, but I see the category other, which I want to be in, but I'm not in it. But nonetheless, here's what I found: $25,000.
Okay.
For 15 roller Ducatis, Elites, Scramblers, and Monzas. All right, Minnesota.
Okay, I've seen that. I've seen that post.
Yes. All right. So 15 rollers, parts, and whatever. I mean, you can look at you've seen the ad.
If I
asking $25,000 for it, so that's nearly $2,000 a roller, is the way I look at it.
Which is crazy.
So let me just ask you this: I see these things for sale. Are we nuts? Are people buying that kind of stuff at that price?
Yeah. Well, and that's
is my pricing model way outdated?
I think so, but I don't think it's a bad thing because we're obviously satisfied in our count. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh man, I really wished I had another Ducati. Like we have some, and if we really wanted one, we could probably find another one that's not the moon.
Right.
But there's dudes out there who would rather. I mean, money is less important than the hunt or the fixing or the search or whatever. Where that to me that sounds ludicrous. You know.
I know. In fact, I nearly had that much in my first Ducati roller that I bought with you, and I just wanted to throw up over it. Except for the fact that it's like I hadn't seen one in years, and just same thing how I got pushed into the Marini a little bit more than I wanted to go, but yet when you don't have them and you want them, I mean, what's your choice?
Yeah.
But I'm worried that I'm such a boomer anyway. But am I a boomer in the motorcycle price world too? Am I unrealistic about what projects and rollers are?
What's funny, I think that the spending $2,000 or say you spent $7,000 on a finished rideable Ducati, I think that's boomer. Okay. Because that seems like the value is its rarity and collectability when we know it's not that rare. I mean, they're rare.
Yeah.
450 wide cases are rare.
Right.
But just a little Monza 250 to run around or even a little scrambler, that's not that hard to come by. But I think that the holding onto your collection or valuing it in such a dear way, that's more boomer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, what I worry about is that I see these things for sale on Craigslist for years. And so obviously if it's a $1,200 bike and project, someone's probably going to buy it. I see guys that have the same project that think it's a $3,500 project. And because they saw somewhere that at an auction or somewhere on Craigslist that once it was a Ducati Scrambler that once sold for $8,000 or $12,000, and now they think okay, that's the basis now for what all this is worth. And I just look at it and think, I just don't think. I mean, I can imagine selling my finished Ducati, and I bet I could wait forever to get $4,500 for it. But if I took it to a show or a place, there's people who think, oh wow, hey, that's a pretty good deal, But yet, in reality, when it comes time to sell it and find a buyer, I just think you have to be like at 70% of retail if you're going to get any action on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you get high retail on? You ever sold anything for high retail?
Like my Paso, I tried to sell and I had a guy over in that arena. In other words, it was $3,000 and that was probably the right price for that model. But he was so out of shape about, a piece of paint had shipped. And so it was just all wrong, Right. And so that's about as close as I've gotten.
Okay. All right.
I mean, they actually KZ750s, the twins, are surprisingly hard to find and they're great bikes. And so once upon a time, they were pretty hard to find. I'd found like two for $500 each or whatever, but I sold those consistently for 18 or $2,000, 1,800, $2,000, just because I don't know. If you want one, you're willing to pay now.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, occasionally I've come across that, and occasionally I've done okay on auctions, or I've done okay on eBay, or, but yet just by and large, I'm just skeptical in general of almost everybody who's trying to sell their car or motorcycle on Craigslist. Yeah. When they just it's based on auction pricing, which is an auction pricing is different. That's a bunch of pretty well-heeled people that are buying fairly new looking stuff. Yeah. And I think all those cars and things that are sold for $50,000 at auction, I don't think there's anybody that's got less than $50,000 in it. At some point, someone had to take that ride. Maybe somebody else got it underneath or whatever. But for that thing to come back and roll across the block, that's kind of a
anyway. So there is like looking at this pile of Ducatis. There's I mean, it sucks because there's some really great stuff in here. But if you look at the Facebook groups, that's where I've been looking mostly because there's at least stuff there. Now it's priced, unfortunately, like what we're talking about, where somebody thinks they're going to get whatever for it, and they might do. That's the trouble, is that there's some other dude who's like, oh yeah, that's well, okay. So like the Camel that I was looking at, the Motorini Camel,
which would be a very desirable
Oklahoma
bike to have.
Yeah, but he wants $4,000 for it, and it's
that just,
dude, I can't. And it sucks because he might have been able to get that in 2007.
Yeah. That's right. Nobody ever expects that the collectible market to correct, and it does. I think they just think that it's always going to be gaining, and it's just not that like that. So here's one other thing, just regarding this. One of the reasons why the Ducati batch caught my eye. And let me ask you how you feel about this. There are times that I want to do something just because I know how to do it. Right. And so the reason I look at these Ducatis is I finally cracked the code for how to make them work, with all the electrics and all the charging system. And, and I've been through the motors. And so there's no real mystery. I mean, I could still screw it up as much as the next guy. But to me, it's something that I know a little bit about. And when you look at projects, like if we buy, like if you finally come to your senses and let me buy that MV Agusta, or if you have to insist on getting everything for yourself, then you get it for yourself. But anyway, one of us will end up with it. But then you got to kind of think, all right, now I've got to go ahead and get in and learn my way around it. And we'll know something about it because we've been around bikes. But isn't there just a big difference in your mind in terms of project when you think, oh, hey, that Fiat 128 is coming up for sale. I see it. I already have one. I know exactly what to do with it. Are there times that you feel sucked into projects just because you know how to do it?
See, most of the time, just the opposite.
Really?
Because like the KZ is actually a good example, because I bought one and I was like, oh, this is great. It's, at that point I had the CX 500, and then the 750 was the big upgrade that I'd bought, and I loved it. And ended up selling all those bikes. But then later I was trying to recapture that 750 that I'd gotten, right? So I got another 750. It just didn't feel the same. Like it was like, I understand what's wrong. Or at that point I realized it's about finding the thing and then learning something new and fixing an unknown problem.
Right.
So if I do that and then just do it again, then that just seems like it's a means to the end of having the bike. And that's not really the bulk of what I'm interested in. Does that make sense?
It does, because I'm actually on the other side of that. And maybe it's because of my age, but I'm kind of now returning to things I've once had before, just because I know how to do it.
But not from a nostalgic standpoint.
Sometimes a nostalgic,
or a bit of both.
Like I thought about, I'd get a Land Rover project again. I had Land Rovers coming out my ears 20 years ago. I had nothing but Land Rovers laying around. And then I had Cagiva Elefant, 6 of them, and so I had just everything. And, every now and then when I think, oh, maybe I'd like to get one of those again. But probably the biggest attraction is that now I figure, well, I'm a little bit better set up to do these things. I could do a little bit better job. And I kind of don't have to have those, be stumped all the time about some of the stuff, because once you've kind of figured something out and you have your own solutions for them, to me, I think that's very powerful. And all of a sudden I feel I'm capable now. And when, I got stalled on my Ducati project because I kept trying to consult other people in the forums about how to solve it. And finally I just said, fuck it, I'm just going to figure this out if I was the only guy on the planet and I had to just do it with stuff that I can find. I'm just going to make this work. And all of a sudden it just occurred to me how to make it work. And I'm sure it occurred to everybody else too. But the thing is, I invented my way through this, even though it wasn't, original work. But now it's like I'm armed with how to figure this out. And that makes me more likely to take on another project that I can figure out, because I don't like being stumped. That's just not that fun to me.
I like being stumped and figuring it out. But I do, one thing you did say that I will take a step back on is that idea of doing the same thing over but better. Now that you're either better at that thing or more about the process, right? Like, painting the van.
Yes.
Right? Like the van is blue, it's still blue. But if I don't want to do it again because it's a giant van. And it's fine the way it is. But if I had it over, if it was primed and ready to go, I'd probably do a little more body work.
Yeah.
Or, I'd probably prep it a little bit better.
Right.
But in that point, if it's to do that thing I know how to do again better, and maybe I am mistaken, because I want to do that thing over again, but for me, it's also been incremental, reseat valves. Okay, what's next after that? okay, well, take the cylinder off, new rings, hone the cylinder, on any given, like a CT90 or something. And then ultimately I'm rebuilding the Benelli with a kickstart, and then the Ducati, so I've incrementally gotten deeper into bigger projects. And so I'm doing the same thing that I know how to do, but I'm adding a layer of depth.
Okay, you know what? I just thought of this, and maybe this will be enough for the topic. You tell me. But one of the reasons I like doing stuff that I've done before is that I know how to cheat, and that's what I like. I like cheating. I love the fact that like I'm putting together a Volvo motor now, and I need lifters for it, and you can get them from Volvo for $18 a piece. There's only 8 of them; it's not a big deal. But I can also get the ones out of a small block Chevy for $4 a piece, and I know that. It just so happens that those work. And so I love the cheats. That's
streamlining the process.
It streamlines the process. It saves me money. I feel smart when I do it. And so I love cheating. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I would like to stay with projects, because I know how to cheat it. And that means I can be a little bit more savvy about buying it. And sometimes like I look at a project, do you ever do this? You look at a project and somebody goes, "Oh, that's so much work." And I'm just kind of underneath my breath, I'm laughing. I'm going, "Are you kidding me? This is a paint job. This is not a lot of work." There's time, but or like I look at it with property. We buy, we're looking to buy some rental property, and people, walk away because there's some, the ceiling's coming down because there was a water leak, and people go, "Oh my gosh, there's a water leak," and you just realize, this is $250 repair,
Yeah.
And so sometimes I feel like that, and I like feeling like I'm getting over, I guess,
Yeah.
Without I don't mind taking advantage of people either for that, So I always want to say I'm a guy that wouldn't take advantage of somebody on a deal, but like I would take advantage of you, if I could.
Well, but it's not getting one over that it is just like, well, there's a reason I'm selling it. I can't do it. Somebody else who can. The value of you being able to do it. That's your. So I go back and forth. I mean, I don't mind going back, but there's so many other new things to do. And even just on the Italian single side.
Well,
like,
go ahead.
So that's as I say, that's because we've had a conversation before where like I don't get like BSA guys. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get BMW guys, like those 70-year-old dudes who have been working on nothing but opposed twins for 50 years, and they know every facet of it. And they know a lot of things about a lot of things, but that's all they're interested in doing is working on BMWs.
Right.
And I go back and forth on that because it's like, well, if you know it inside and out, then you're continually having success. That's awesome. But I realize that's a different motivation than me, who's like, okay, I had a BMW, I pretty much conquered it. I'd love to do another one, bigger one, to have another experience with a different airhead. But as far as that engine goes, I had the problems, solved them, and I wrote it.
Yes.
And now what's next?
Yes.
So
yes.
I never understood that, but it sounds like, or I wonder if as you get older, are you narrowing your focus on the kinds of things that you want to do?
Maybe. Yeah. Because it's a reality. And also too, it's not only my age, but also my collection is nearly, it's more shit than I need. You know what I mean? And so then it's a whole different decision-making process when you already have, I've just built a brand new garage and it's going to be full the minute I'm done, with stuff. And so it's like, okay, I need to be careful about what I add to the mix here, and so so it's partly age, partly looking for some shortcuts. And then the other part of it is just the reality is that when you have enough shit, you just don't need to keep having the same shit. Although I get confused on that. There are times I keep trying to buy stuff I already have, just because it's a good deal or whatever. And well, actually here was one, and maybe this will be a little bit illustrative of my problem, is that I found a car I'd never seen before. It's called an ISO Revolta. All right. And it was for sale in San Francisco. It was $12,000 for a rusty Hulk laying in the backyard. Right. And I could see that someone had ground the paint off of it years ago and just left it outside. And so I looked at it, and it looked different, and I couldn't tell what was different about it. I couldn't tell what it was, and then it was it's ISO Revolta. I'd never even heard of that. Then I looked them up, and of course they're Italian. I fell fucking in love with it, and then it just got better and better and better because they have small block Chevys in them, which I hate as motors. I hate them.
Okay,
but there's nothing to really worry about making it run or getting it going.
Yeah.
So at least
parts are available. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to find my way through it. And they do some neat little trick tunes to them or whatever. But this was an Italian coachwork car. It had American V8 in it. The underpinnings were all Jaguar.
Is it?
Independent suspension and bushes. Just the way Jaguar sets up their suspension, they use a lot of Jaguar parts. And so for me, I thought, oh my gosh, one, it's rusty. And who's a welder? Me. Okay. And then it needs Chevy parts. Shit. Yes.
Yeah.
And then it's like I get the underside of it. I'll know how to set up the suspension. I know how to put all that stuff in it.
Yeah.
And it was $12,000 for it, and it's $100,000 car done. And I thought, I'm going to get this thing for $12,000. And I am just going to fight my way through it, and it'll be a challenge to take care of, to do the upholstery or get it done or the paint or whatever, because this will have to be done all right. There's no room for one of these to be done up as a half-ass race car, which is how I do most things. But this one had to be done. But anyway, I was excited because it was unique and I loved it, but yet it had so many things I knew how to fix. And so I had to have it. Talk to the guy twice, third conversation, I'm going to put the money down and fly out and get it. Fucker sold it to a guy in England who the next day, before he even got it, advertised it and sold it for $39,000 as a project to some guy in Sweden.
Jeez. Oh, that's aggravating. That's aggravating. Damn. Which one was it?
Well, some of the ISOs are untouchable. Like I have to remember which one it is. But this was the ISO Revolta. It's a 2-door hardtop sedan. Looks a little bit like a Jaguar XJC coupe, but very Ferrari looking in terms of their sedan and family cars.
Okay,
I mean it's neat.
It looks like a Jaguar had sex with a Camaro and a BMW watch. Yes, 2002 watched. Yeah.
Yes. Well, but by the time they got to 68, 69, they were just fucking ugly. But this was an early 60s one. But they also have the ISO Griffo. Look up that one.
Yeah,
that's the ones that are untouchable.
Super nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are for people that are better than me, and that's just all there is to it. But anyway, I was going to get into something new, totally unknown, but it had some of the key features were things that made me feel powerful. Like I want to buy the rustiest cars ever. Nothing to me. I look for ones that are just falling apart in the field, because to me it's just metal. All we're going to do is put little pieces of metal and then big pieces of metal in it, but it's just metal.
Yeah.
There's no mystery in it to me.
Yeah. Well, it is, not to jump back around, but I've got this Ducati page opened up and there's so many one-off pieces that I need. Like I need a new seat, and he's got a seat that's beautiful.
What would you pay for that lot?
I mean, were I able to, 25 isn't insane. It's very optimistic. But the more you look, the more it goes in, because he's got rollers, but then he's got parts enough for probably 6 more rollers.
Yes. I think he figures there's 15 bikes in there.
Yeah.
Something like that. But to me, $15,000 is a number I would run out there and get and do. And then on the way out there. Yeah. At 15, I would go out there and give them the 15 for it. But on the way out there, I'd call you and go, how much do you want in for? And I'd call my friend Sean and Terry and go, how much you guys want in for? Because I don't need 15 of them. But I wouldn't mind having 5 of them. 5 of them for $5,000, between us would be, that's how I like to do it. But
yeah, and there's so much good stuff in there. It's funny because there's these little pockets of Ducati parts scattered throughout the US. So, yes. And it's aggravating because when I got my Paso, I don't know if I told you the story. I got the Paso in Burr Oak, Kansas.
Oh, that's
so okay. I saw it as way out of the way. And so I saw it, called the guy, and I knew that he had bought it from another guy the week prior for $500 less. So I knew what he paid. Yes, I was going to go out and buy it then. And then he immediately turned around, flipped it, sold it to me, made $500. Good for him. So I went out and bought this thing, and he was an older guy, and he was kind of protective, like, you know, this is as far as you're coming in, buddy, you know?
Yeah.
And
well, it is Oklahoma.
Yeah. And so I'm talking about no, it's Kansas.
Oh, Kansas.
And
sorry.
So
that's all the same to me.
Big difference. And so he was just kind of like, you know, not really inviting. I'm just trying to be as charming as I fucking can, because I see behind him, he's got 2 Ducati singles on stands.
I just love the thought of you trying to be. I love the thought of you trying to be charming. I just love that.
To some old bastard, and he was super nice. Once you broke that ice, he was so nice. But you know, basically had to do the deal on the Paso before I could even talk about anything else. And then once we sort of shipped away, it was like, oh yeah, come back here and have a look. And you know, there's a room and then another room. He used to be a Ducati dealer, apparently. So he had parts. He had a room that was like, here's the Velocity Stacks shelf, and it's just full of shit. Here's the clip-ons shelf, and it's just 40, 50, 60.
If I could live my life over, I'd like to be a dealer of something. Wouldn't it? I mean, to have been a dealer in a motorcycle?
Yes, once upon a time.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Can you imagine how much fun that would have been, Andy? We're going to sell Hodakas. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, it's like, could you imagine the dream of being a dealer? And they all got killed and lost their ass. I mean, nobody made any money in the whole deal. But I just would have loved to have been a dealer at some point, especially on the small scale. Because like, I never wanted to be like a Ford dealer, you know, or a Honda dealer. That doesn't really attract me, although I'm sure there's a decent bunch of money in it. But the oddball stuff, like I look at these old cars I have, you know, it's like what it would have been like to have been a dealer and to have sold, you know, Hudsons and Pierce Arrows, you know, and, you know, they were small maker cars, you know, and just, oh man, it would have been great to have been involved with that, or motorcycles. Right.
Well, I'm going to keep an eye on this eBay thing, but I know I saw it somewhere. It must've been Facebook or something, but anyway, we got other things to do before more Ducatis, let alone more expensive Ducatis.
Yeah.
This podcast is produced and edited by Hole in the Head Moto. You can help this little show by subscribing and even leaving a review. It's a huge help and we appreciate it. Find us on the socials at Hole in the Head Moto and see our website holeintheheadmoto.com for more info, swag, and pictures of projects. See you next time.